I will try and get it up to a level where I'm like, yeah, this is the right volume. And then I can really hear what's going on. I can hear what needs to happen. And I don't take any physical notes, but I like mastering because it's really instinctual.
Mm-hmm.
Or is for me anyway.
Yeah.
Like I know what I'm going to do within the first listen. It's like I at least know which direction I'm going to take it in. And sort of start thinking about, okay, well, this is going to work for this. This needs addressing here. And it's just reacting as quickly as you can to those things. I've made the comparison that it's almost like improvised music,
mm-hmm.
where you're just right there in the moment, just reacting to what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And like, the more you do it, the more you build up those kind of instincts, and the more you make decisions that are actually tasteful and mean something.
Yeah. So you just got to get those reps in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same with any of this stuff, and not just the technical stuff, like any aspect of it as well. Like, I'm sure you get asked, like, you know, how do you get going with this stuff? You know, how do you get more clients and all that sort of stuff? And like, it takes so long. And there's no way around it.
Yeah. I keep talking about this like recently on the podcast and also with other people. It takes about a decade, I think, to find success in like any of these fields. Like it could take 5 years, it could take 15 years, but like I think like a decade seems to be what most people go through. And I was talking to I had the plumber come over to fix something. And I was like, yeah, you know, like things are really starting to pick up, you know, like these things take about a decade. And he's like, yeah, it took me a decade. Like,
yeah,
it's like just till the word of mouth got out and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just like till enough balls start rolling, you just have to be in the game for so long, you know? And I feel like you really got to just not quit. That's really the secret.
Yeah. One of the things Katie Tavini said to me, she was like, so anything like stuff that you do that will kind of lead to work or lead to you make a connection that might lead to, you know, working with someone, like the timeline is a year. So like anything you do now will come to fruition in about a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's like, it was such a cool piece of advice and completely right. You know,
yeah.
It's just,
you plant all these seeds and you don't know when they're going to come to fruition.
Yeah, exactly. And you've just got to keep planting.
You just got to keep planting.
Like that's
so many seeds, and then just some of them will eventually sprout, and it might take a year or two or whatever, you know.
Because I'm at that point where like I kind of feel like things that are like going really well and they're going really nicely, and I'm trucking, but I'm still frantically sowing seeds because I never ever want to see an empty diary ever again.
Yeah, well, you got a kid to feed, right? Like
yeah, and I know what that looks like, and I know what it feels like.
Right.
So be like, oh man, you know.
Yeah.
So I just don't want that.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. It's because sometimes I feel like I'll get into like a swing or a mode where I'm just like working so much. I just want to be done with this like really crazy period and have like a more chill period. And then like you finally get to the chill period, and it's like you stop sowing those seeds, you know. And it's like, no, you need to keep at it, like. But it's a hard kind of like yin and yang, you know, that balance of knowing you need to be busy, being too busy, and then figuring out how to like not overwhelm yourself, but continue planting seeds.
Do you think it ever stops? Do you think doing what we do it ever like?
I think at a certain point you maybe can become busy enough that you don't have to worry as much about people saying no, or you say or turning down projects, and like. There's enough in the pipeline that you're just never. I think you can get to that point, but it takes time. I don't know. I'm not quite there yet, but
that I've not really got that much of an issue saying no to projects. Not because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I don't need to because I, you know, or anything like that. I just like I could still do with taking, you know, all the jobs that come my way, but I don't. Like there's so much music in the world. Like if you look at how many songs are uploaded to Spotify like every day, there's enough to go around.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you don't need to be like desperately just taking anything. Like, I think if you're willing to play the long game,
Mm-hmm.
there's enough of like what you would like to work on.
Yeah.
I'm sure like the whole, like the Seth Godin kind of
the long tail of the internet.
Yeah, exactly, all that sort of stuff. I just kind of feel like that has worked for me. That mindset has worked.
The abundance mentality.
What does he call it? The smallest viable market, rather than the largest. The whole like you only need 1,000 people to pay you $100 each a year, and you're
good to go.
I mean, that makes so much sense.
It really does.
And especially coming from the kind of like the musical background that I've come from, where like, I like weird stuff. I like, I like left field stuff. I like experimental music and stuff like that. And it's like, there doesn't need to be that many of us buying these records to fund another one.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel the same with me. I mean, if I was working every single day for 10 hours, like 5 days a week, constantly mastering, like that's good. I mean, that'd be more than enough money. Thank you very much. Like, the market, if you can find your smallest viable market, it will be big enough, I think, is the...
I mean, I love that. It's actually a really important thing to talk about. And it's something that I've talked about a lot with Carl Bonner, who's been on the show, and I've mentioned, and he, we've done some like business coaching. He has this whole, thing where you kind of find music you like on Spotify, and you kind of use the algorithm to kind of find artists that kind of match your taste and things that you like to work on. And there's just so many. And that's like the kind of like, oh, this would be a great artist to work with. This would be a great artist to work with. And then you just kind of slowly reach out to artists like that, And I hope I'm not giving away too much of I don't think I am. But like the proof is that there's just so much music out there that you could be a great fit for. And there, like you said, like there's just a market for engineers, because there's so many people make so many different kinds of music. And like you said, that long game mentality of like, let's try to really work on the music that I really want to work on. And that's something that I need to work a bit more on. And this is something that like, having spoken with Carl about this stuff, it's like, okay, cool. Like you really need to like set up your website to try to attract those kinds of artists. And like, I've done a lot of, and like no shade, but like I've worked on a lot of ballads. And I think a lot of like what people kind of ask me to do is ballads. But I also really like, I'm really into indie rock. Like Radiohead is my jam. You know what I mean? Like that's like I want to be doing more of that kind of music also. I still love working on a good ballad, don't get me wrong, but like I need to be showing the world more of like that kind of stuff, which I don't have as much reps in. I don't have as many, things to show of. But like you slowly got to work. If you play that long game and you slowly work towards doing more of that kind of music, or the music that you love, and try to cater to those kinds of artists. You know what I mean? Like
I do. I think the reason why that's hard is because you've got to be willing to put some people off, and that seems like a really scary thing.
Especially when that could be like your bread and butter.
Yeah, exactly. You've almost I had to don't want to go on about Seth Godin.
Always, you could always go on off on Seth. On this podcast, you could always go off on Seth Godin, no problem.
But what he says about saying like so this isn't for you. Like, and it sounds so like it sounds so bracing and almost rude to sort of to deliberately you're not directly telling people this, but like to sort of give off the impression of just like, okay, this is for you, it's probably not for you. And that like that's quite frightening, but it's super empowering. I mean, I said to you earlier, I don't really do any EDM, and I don't really do any
jazz,
like trap or whatever. Yeah, I mean jazz, I do a bit of jazz, I guess, but it's like, I think the point is that whatever I'm putting out, I seem to be attracting mostly people who I want to work with, which is amazing. And I think that's part of what the Weird Jungle collective is trying to do as well. It's sort of like presenting this sort of like, this is kind of where we're at. This is the kind of you've got to sort of go like, well, this is the kind of people we are.
People like us
and
do things like this. That's the Seth Godin. That's the Seth Godin quote.
There you go. That is the Seth Godin.
Right. If anybody's ever listened to like Akimbo.
So but yeah, so to say like, look, you know, if you like this vibe, if you like what we're doing, then like, you know, come and work with us, because like we'll probably get on really well. And that has worked. That thinking has worked for me.
I think also what's really cool about being a mastering engineer is because you work on so much music so quickly that it kind of really quickly gives you like an output to show the world of like, hey, this is the kind of stuff I work on. With like production and mixing, it takes a lot longer. I think to build up that kind of catalog of music to show the world of like, hey, this is what I'm about, or this is like the kind of music I'm passionate about and do really well, you know, which is cool.
Definitely.
It's cool that you get like, that almost like I don't want to say it's a shortcut, but it's like you can just put the reps in a little bit quicker, you know?
Yeah, you can build up like a pretty big credit list like, pretty quickly.
It's amazing.
But yeah, it is. And I think I just see every job I do that's completed that I'm happy with and the artist is really happy with. I see it as like, see every job as just like, right, that's one, that's in the bank. Because those, like, you know, the word of mouth is always going to be, you know, the most powerful thing. Always.
Yeah, really is.
Like so every time you do a job that someone's really, really happy with and they recommend you, I mean, that's it. And it's the same with any type of self-employment at all. You know, certainly not just our industry, but yeah, that's just how it's worked.
Yeah. I love it, man. Well, the masters you sent me sound great. So, I mean, I took a listen before we started chatting. So maybe this is a great opportunity to kind of jump into the Sauce segment and talk about some specific work that you've done. Sound cool?
Yeah, it sounds great.
All right. Well, you sent me a track called Lorn by Modern Technology. So let's have a listen to that for about 90 seconds, and we'll talk about it.
Cool.
Wow. Steven, this is something else, man. I'm not sure what genre this is. I mean, it's like clearly in the metal camp, I guess. But yeah. Super cool. A lot of texture in the vocal, and then the low end, it really feels really full. And there's some funny like tempo things happening also, like almost like they're skipping half a beat on purpose, kind of like I don't even know what's going on.
Well, yeah, they're a cool band. They're a two-piece. They're just a two-piece, so they're bass and vocals and a drummer.